What's the saddest truth about smart people? Many downsides to being unusually smart. Things are never aimed at your level and often move so slow they are boring. You usually have to hold yourself back from doing your best so others can have a go, which makes it difficult to be challenged. You feel immense pressure to choose paths that will fulfill your potential rather than doing what makes you happy. You are especially isolated as you have just as many struggles as others, but they are not the same ones. It is often assumed that you are equally gifted in all areas, so may not get the support and assistance you need, especially in school. You have to be constantly aware of not making yourself a target of jealousy and not making friends or people in general feel bad. So you can never just openly celebrate your happy moments with others. E.g., I worked really hard and got ridiculously high marks on the medical entrance exam. Best moment of my life. But I have never told any of my friends as it might make them feel bad and don't want to feel like bragging. You can have the same issues as others when it comes to motivation, concentration, etc., especially since I have ADHD. But your struggles are overlooked or minimized, or you are viewed as especially lazy, i.e., expectations are higher even though being smart doesn't necessarily mean you are just going to do better in every situation. I'm sure there are many others that I can't think of right now. A constant feeling of failure. Like, you're aware you could do good with such an effective brain, but you also always feel like you aren't living up to your true potential. Then there's fear about never reaching your full potential and dying a failure. Also, it's pretty lonely, to be honest. I don't know how much of that is compounded by also being autistic in my case, but I find it hard to keep friends because I have a habit of fact sharing and come across like a know-it-all. People tend to get pretty bored of every conversation being like a lesson in one thing or another. It's also kinda hard to date as an intelligent woman. A lot of men feel insecure around you. It sounds obnoxious, but I don't mean it to. I've been more intelligent than most men I have dated. That seems a novelty when first dating, kind of a manic pixie thing, but they soon get fed up with dating a know-it-all. Oh, and also, burnout. Again, I don't know how much is autism in play, but holy fuck, I burn out so quickly. My brain hyperfocuses on something new daily. I have no choice as to what it is, and I can't stop researching it until my brain is satisfied. Often, I go so intense that I burn out. Literally spend hours every day researching and learning. It is my biggest hobby. The intensity of the focus on it, combined with the inability to stop and focus on something else, means I hit burnout pretty quick. I think I have an interesting perspective. I come from a family of smart and some genius people. It is still hard for me to realize I am smart. I still have the expectations on me, though always feel like I will never live up to them. This is all because I'm not as smart as some of my relatives. Being only a bit gifted in a family that has multiple geniuses is a blow to self-esteem. On the other hand, it is also hard for me to remember that people aren't as smart as me. I tend to see myself as average intelligence and have to be explained, no, most others can't grasp the things I can, and the ones that can don't do so easily. On top of all this, I didn't fit in with any of my classmates because I was smarter than them. I was bullied for something I didn't believe I was. When I finally got into high school, there was finally a few people as smart as me, but because I didn't see myself as smart, they treated me as those who weren't. Every time I did something that showed how smart I was, they were all surprised. It was another blow to my self-esteem. I guess the sad truths are, low self-esteem comes with the intelligence, and the only real thing you can't grasp most of the time is everyone isn't as smart as you. Smart people can get outpaced by hard workers because they can easily burn out. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. A lot of smart people really face a harsh reality when they make the transition from high school to college. If you're smart, gifted even, you're able to pretty much coast through even AP level courses and get a good score on the SAT or ACT. Life has a lot of structure. Teachers tell you when the homework is due, and things really can't go wrong because the schoolwork just comes naturally. Enter college. No one tells you when your homework is due. You're outside of your parents' house and no adults are there to baby you to make sure you do your homework and keep up with your assignments. The due dates are longer and span months instead of days. It's easy to get left behind if you don't put pen to paper and knowingly prioritize things. I've watched so many people in my life go from literally 4.0 plus GPAs, above 30 score on the ACT, top of their high school classes, straight to either flunking out, dropping out, or being on academic probation. Because their backgrounds, everything came easy for them. But it doesn't matter how smart you are at the end of the day if you don't apply it in the right way at the right time. I have a PhD in astrophysics and work as a researcher at a university. I am by no means at the top of my field, but I am in the upper echelon, and I work directly with people who are the top of their field, including a Nobel laureate. Based on my very limited experience, this thread is completely filled with cope. The overwhelming majority of people who I work with are perfectly normal people who just happen to be very smart. They probably enjoy nerdy stuff more than the average punter, but in all honesty, the bulk of my non-work conversation with my colleagues is discussing either cricket or footy over a beer. All the people above me are perfectly functional members of society. Most have a spouse, and many have kids. So all this shit about every smart person being a depressed, geeky psychopath is flat out wrong. That's not to say there's not weirdos and oddballs out there. I'm a clinically depressed alcoholic, so I'm not one to judge. My point is more that it's a very stereotypical Reddit thing to talk about how you're such an enlightened being solely because you don't fit into the societal norms. And this thread is absolutely chockers with people claiming that. We waste them. Our entirely social structure, from schools to mortgages, are designed for people with very average intellectual abilities. Smart people have to deal with the daily stress of living in a system that isn't built for them and lose a lot of their productivity and take a real hit to their mental health as a result. If we stop subjugating them to standardized systems designed against them, just imagine how much further we would have advanced as a species. Just a small edit to clear up some confusion. I'm not advocating for redesigning our social structure to suit only the smartest X% of our population. For those who aren't familiar with inclusive design, mostly talked about when talking about designing digital systems, but the principle is cross-applicable. The basic idea is to design systems that provide room for different people to be able to use or fit into the system equally well, despite their differences. There is absolutely no reason why we all have to live the same way, or why we should be forcing people to live in a world that doesn't have room for people like them. In my case, at the very least, constantly being told by family how smart you are and feeling like you're wasting your potential if your interest didn't involve throwing yourself at school for hours a day. And then being filled with guilt when your grades are terrible, when you come from a family of doctors, material scientists, biomedical engineers, and software engineers. The hardest part for me was constantly feeling like I was wasting my life because I would constantly compare myself to the individuals in my family. No one would ever actively make me feel bad about it, but when you're surrounded by success at a young age and are solidifying those cases as your definition of success, it makes it very hard when you're trying to redefine what you consider to be successful and how you determine your own self-worth. Granted, in the end, I found my path and was able to redefine what I view to be successful, but before I did, I was suffocated by the constant feelings of guilt that I was more interested in video games than good grades and the stress of not finding success. Being smart is lonely. If you're in an environment in which nobody your age can compete with you, then there's usually a pressure to dumb yourself down, to be able to attempt to hold friendships, and you can never be your true self in front of them. Even if they like when you show your intelligence, there is still a distance intellectually. The same can apply to work and romantic relationships. What you need is a rival you can grow with, compete with, grow with. Imagine you're the greatest chess player or other thing in the world, and everyone else is at the level of a second grader who only knows the rules. It's an exaggerated example, but it can feel like this sometimes. This can also lead to a disconnect between you and humanity. I like the way this idea was portrayed in Watchmen by Dr. Manhattan. He could see past, present, and future all at once, one of the smartest beings throughout the universe. His vision and intelligence so wide that a human is no different than an atom filling in space. I don't know if I'm smart, but I've dealt with problems of stupid people who were blinded to facts and were narcissistic, so they thought they were always right. Never. I'd say that I'm better than being stupid, but probably not above average. At least I can realize when I'm wrong and proceed to admit it. Although smart needs a better definition. I'm smart for computer stuff, but I don't know much about biology. The sad truth is that many smart people are thought to not be smart, as they're not smart for everything, but being smart in general is impossible. Being smart must be sad, as whatever the average is, it seems pretty stupid. Which is why I'd say that for most things, I'm near the average. Perhaps I'm wrong about myself. I could be very stupid or very smart. I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to tell. I'd be able to live with both options anyway, or neither. Now, let's imagine you getting rickrolled. Now that you imagine the music video, I have rickrolled you using your own mind. Never gonna let you down. Lots of things. Walking the line between genius and insanity is hard enough. Enough background knowledge to be good at things at surface level, but then after we don't see immediate success, we become discouraged because we feel we aren't good enough. Being told we were really smart or gifted kids growing up, and because we were expected to do well in everything, the expectations has drained us of care or effort. I can't stand people who are boring or stupid. Someone who's only one-dimensional or lacks personality or hobbies piss me off. I constantly analyze people like a computer. I watch body language and other things that give me information on how a person is or how they act, what they are insecure about, what they care about. It's kind of annoying because I can't, turn it off. But I'm also a dumbass Redditor, so the fact that I'm here has my IQ take a massive -300 to any argument I make. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Fear of failure and/or being undisciplined. For most smart people, school is an absolute walk through the park. They go through high school doing the bare minimum because they succeed anyway. This prevents them from developing a disciplined work ethic. In the face of hardship, they tend to give up because they simply aren't used to it. It is not that they can't do the new, harder work. It is just that people have given them the idea that being smart entails barely having to do anything. In short, smart people go through school doing fuck all, but are inevitably confronted by a study load or workload that requires a personally developed work ethic that they have never needed before. Because of the lack of discipline, they eventually fail their courses or at their job and are driven to despair because they have never failed before, or aren't used to it at least, and don't know what to do about it. They start questioning their intelligence and capabilities. Most people will not nurture them. They will hide their eyes and ears to save their own self-confidence, or try to destroy them to feel better about themselves, or try to exploit them without allowing them to ever reach their full potential and leave their control. The first thing a smart person must learn is which life strategy they choose. To fight the system and value their autonomy and morality, often at the cost of the danger of an isolated journey and emotional blood, or to adapt to the best offer in a place of society they can find. Safe, constrained, slightly above mediocrity, but far from what they may have been. Neither has a particularly high chance of becoming all they could have been. Both have their risks in of losing hope or vigor in life. You can be isolated and surrounded by people. Both ways basically come down to luck. Sometimes greatness is nurtured, but it is too often intentionally snuffed out. I am not a particularly smart person. I would say average or slightly above. Unless you compare me to the other people in my family, then I'm Einstein. I have been desperately trying to help my mother as I have watched her dismantle her life piece by piece. As it turns out, you can't just tell someone they shouldn't marry a drug user, or stay with a drug user, or that they may want to consider cutting the drug user out of the will. Same with my other family members. I finally proposed a trust system for property so it couldn't be sold off. I wanted to be the manager of said trust. My mom asked her favorite lawyer if that was wise. This guy has been handling family's affairs for decades. His response was, yes, your son is the only person in your family that has any fucking sense. Seeing the world for what it is often leads to less happiness. To quote Lovecraft, the most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. The sciences, each straining in its own direction, have hitherto harmed us little, but someday the piecing together of dissociated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality, and of our frightful position therein, that we shall either go mad from the revelation or flee from the light into the peace and safety of a new, dark age. If you ever get too optimistic about the human condition, remind yourself that there are scratch marks in the gas chambers at Auschwitz. There is a certain range of intelligence I want to focus on. It's that range when you are smart, but not smart enough to know what you don't know. If those people in that category were either just a bit less smart or a bit more smart, life would be so much easier for them. It is sad to me that some people, through possibly no real fault of their own, land right in the middle of that level of intelligence. So smart they know everything. They don't, and they aren't smart enough to know that or dumb enough to know it. It makes life hard for them. People dislike them and they don't even know why. Opportunities get missed and they can only wonder why life isn't fair to them, something they would know if they were just a bit less or more intelligent. Most hyper-intelligent people are depressed to some extent. The intelligence itself is isolating as most normal people can't understand the thought process of a genius. There are also a lot of challenges due to the fact that the system really doesn't have any support system for a genius. School is built to put students on a very specific learning path, and truly intelligent people find the process to be a bore and stop trying. Due to that, they fail to learn normal things like how to study and deal with challenge. Without proper outside support from parents or mentors to properly challenge them, a lot of them burn out early due to the negatives and the pressure of their potential. A lot of them also fall to drugs like alcohol and marijuana because they enjoy the feeling of being dumbed down. They're all born on a wrong planet into the wrong species. Majority of humans hate intelligent persons, sometimes out of pure envy, sometimes because they say things which make ordinary humans go all butthurt. The human race is mostly composed of non-negotiable, aggressive, primitive beings who prefer the simplest solution to all problems. And the simplest solution is usually beat them to death. Also, smart persons tend to love thinking over things, questioning things, looking for complex solutions, etc., which is not tolerated by most ordinary humans because their solution to solving everyday problems is either violence or choosing a solution which is preferred by own tribe, making it a tradition and punishing everything that goes against it, including what could improve the established practices and/or the way of life. Put simply, smart individuals just don't fit into the human race. Imposter syndrome seems to be very prevalent among smart people. In the mix is also the Dunning-Kruger effect. I don't feel like I'm smart, despite having friends and family telling me that I am. It always feels like everyone is smarter than me because I know that there's so much out there that I don't know. But then again, what defines a person who is smart? Is it having a wide array of knowledge on various topics? Being an expert in a niche field? Having a good memory? Taking in information and learning skills quickly? Having common sense and being analytical and reflecting rather than critical and argumentative? Is smart and equivalent to intelligence? Experience? IQ? These are things that people often seem to not take into account when mentioning smart people. Intelligent people can't state that they're intelligent because people view that as a sign of not being intelligent. But also, if you lord yourself around for being intelligent, there's the implication that you're belittling everyone around you by saying you're better than them. And people don't like that. If other people recognize a person as intelligent and respect that, then there are no problems. But a lot of the times, people won't do that because it gets in the way of their own pride. And if they do, then I find they're more likely to have more insecurities or less self-esteem. And then there's also the fact that intelligence is often conflated with success. Basically, people suck at gauging other people's intelligence, and that causes problems. Smart is nothing without hard work. Just like athletic or musical ability, you have to do the work. So it's all well and good to be smart, but a lot of smart people do not succeed because they won't work. My husband is smart and incredibly hardworking. He has a master's that he got working nights while being a department manager for Walmart. He achieved a 4.0 in computers. When he went to job fairs afterwards, the companies were literally chasing him down the hall trying to hire him. Since then, he provides a very comfortable life for us by staying up on the latest technology, still learning new skills. He is very smart, and he put in the work. As someone who's been living with a really smart person, I can guarantee that sometimes his mind overwhelms him. The level of analysis he unconsciously uses, the amount of expectations he has on almost everything, and the frustration when the others don't understand. His reasoning doesn't work like in most people. I consider myself an intelligent person, but 90% of the time I have no idea what he's telling me, and the communication becomes impossible. This frustrates him so much that he ends up not sharing how he really is and is just there. I can see in his eyes that he's sad. The more they get praised, the lazier they get. This happened to me, actually. I have been praised and labeled as a very smart person, but saying those stuff made me feel special and mighty to the extent that I didn't study anymore cause I'm smart. And I'm just a few grades away from failing the class now. Another thing is the emotions. They do actually feel sorrowness and happiness, but due to low socializing, it is either compressed, either bursting. It's a different thing if they are extroverts, but still if they are introverted. Most are. They do be like that. Lack of good social skills under their belt. Like, I have a really difficult time with basic social interactions and maintaining long-standing friendships, and it is a miracle I have been with the person I am with for this long. I was never able to stay in a romantic setting for more than a few months. I don't mean to sound like an asshole, but it is all too often difficult to even hold a conversation with someone who seems like they are completely out of my league intellectually, and it is lonely and depressing. Expectations. Never learning to study until it is too late. Being forced to learn outside your age-related interests. Being terrified of failure. Not being able to balance ambition and said fear of failure. Once again, expectations. My mother put so much pressure on me at such a young age, I couldn't handle it. I have done well for myself as an adult, but will never be able to live up to those expectations set by her and others. I should probably go back to therapy. A whole lot of smart people aren't considered smart unless they have good grades and do well academically. I would consider decision-making, wittiness, creativity, humor to an extent, among other things, being smart. Not just how smart you look on paper. Gotta have a conversation before even attempting to determine someone's intelligence. Being good at talking will get you much further in life than any level of intelligence. Doesn't even matter what you say. Humans are enamored by the spoken word and will worship the speaker. The intelligent introvert with great ideas has a much lower ceiling.